It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Hey, welcome to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here in New York City with my good friend and co-host John Nash, and of course the boys in the booth, John and Garrett. Can you believe I'm back with a fresh haircut?
You're back.
And a new back.
And a new back. No, it's a fixed
fixed back.
But it feels like new, right?
Yeah, it feels like new. So thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're watching us live here at Facebook, we're here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. East, and also on our YouTube channel, which you could search for under YouTube at Focus Group Radio as well. I've got to figure out how to do the link in the body. Every time I do it, it kind of messes up when I do
link in the body.
It's social media when you do the link to YouTube.
Yeah.
It wants to populate with.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are, for those of you that have found our podcast every Tuesday, we've got TFG Unbuttoned, which is a kind of the lighter side of the Focus Group, a little more political chatter when need be, and as John likes to say, it's digestible. I said it was commuter friendly. John says it's Stairmaster friendly. So whether you're at your workout at the gym or you're going to work or coming to or from work in the car, download us where you download all your podcasts for TFG Unbuttoned. This week we talked about a number of things on there, didn't we?
We hit 3 topics. If I recall, it was Kansas and Oklahoma are banning, or they're helping religious organizations say you can't adopt through us because you're LGBTQ. And then you follow that up with something that Disney's doing, Amazon, and Major League Baseball.
You got it. So you got a better memory than me.
Well, it feels like it happened last century, even though it was just on Tuesday, right?
Exactly. Who's on the show today?
On the show today, we have author Jeanne Bliss, and this is her book. It's called Would You Do That to Your Mother? The Make Mom Proud Standard for How to Treat Your Customers. It's a fun book filled with little graphics and pictures and all sorts of good things. She is a customer service expert. And the whole point of this book is when you think about things like, would you treat your mother that way? Would you put her on hold for 10 hours to answer a question about like a USB stick or something? I mean, I'm making it up. But
No, you're exactly right. And we've tempered our book authors for quite a while because the business books seem to sometimes be somewhat redundant.
They all sometimes feel like it's the same book.
Right, and this one, though, had a different point of view. But I do think, aside from talking to her about the book, is asking her that sort of question of how do you stand out? There's so many business books. I think somebody told me it's one of the biggest categories now.
Yeah, it is huge.
In terms of people putting books out. And how do you either stand out or how do you gain traction or how do you get people to notice your book? I did want to mention something to you. There's I watched, so my college had its graduation this past weekend, and I watched online. And the speech was given by somebody that I do know, but he was given the speech to the graduates. And he did something I've never seen done before. He put 7 books under every graduate's chair.
Wow.
And he said...
These are your, roadmap for career survival.
He said, I want everybody to read these 7 books. He said, I wish somebody did it to me.
Do you know what the books are?
Yeah, he said, because I think if I read them when I was your age, I'd be so much further ahead in my life now than I am. And he's very successful. I mean, the guy's multi-millionaire. But he said, he goes, and in 10 years from now, he goes, after you read these books, 10 years from now, I want everybody here to donate $1,000 to the college as your payback for me giving you this lesson. Because if you read these books and follow them like I did, you're going to be a very wealthy person. So I thought he'd be interesting to have on and talk through the books, the 7 books.
I'd say we should do that.
I'm going to ask him. He lives in Texas.
Did you recognize the books?
I did, and I was surprised by a few of them.
In a good way?
Yeah, because one of them was written in 1934. Think and Grow Rich.
Try, really try. Believe, really believe.
And he said he's read that book.
Just saying.
He said he's read it 7 or 8 times. He gets something different out of it every time. But he said it goes through different people that were very successful in the industrial age and what the key traits were that they had. And then one book was on leadership. One was on about, being present, being around. Anyway, I didn't recognize most of them.
Okay.
I recognized 2 of them. But I thought he'd be an interesting guest to have on, even if we just did a special to talk about, in fact, if you did read these 7 books, do you think it would be
I'll give you the Hawaii 5-0 approval. Book him, Dano. Book him.
I figured it would be something you would like, and
I would love that.
Well, because it's one of those things.
By the way, how big's the graduating class?
It was about 300.
Okay. So you wouldn't be able to do that like at Syracuse or Cornell.
I guess you could if you had the money, right?
You could if you had the money, right? But you're talking about,
thousands and thousands of dollars. But I thought it was interesting because I do watch this time of year, and whether it's on YouTube or all these different people that give the wisdom for graduates. Mm-hmm. And do you remember who spoke at your graduation?
Nope.
I don't either.
No memory of it.
I don't either. And
graduation was a strange time for me. It was a crowning issue.
Did you have a death in the family?
Yeah, I put myself through school. You know, it's 4 years in, and the family's going to come up, and then my grandmother passed away like a day before. So everybody that was en route to the graduation did a U-turn and went to Pittsburgh, and I think one or two of my relatives came, and I think my dad did, and they watched it. And I didn't even say goodbye. They got in the car and went to the funeral. I was like, okay. So that was a blur.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you just wonder how, you look back on it, and it's like anything, right? If you knew the wisdom, if you knew then what you knew now, would you have done anything different?
Oh boy, yeah. There we go.
Well, no, you can't have, and everybody would, but you can't have regrets because you made the decision at the time which you thought was the best decision.
I was going to clip a piece for us to discuss, but you just actually hit on it. So Jeff Bezos said this the other day. He was talking to an organization, and he said, when you're 80 or 85, your regrets are going to actually be the things that you did not do. Not saying thank you to somebody, not saying I love you to somebody. And then he started to go into bigger things like not taking the trip of a lifetime,
right?
Not doing something when you were healthy and, you could do it. He goes, those are the things when you're laying on the bed at 85 that you're going to say to yourself, I should have done that.
Do you have a trip of the lifetime you want? I know you want to go to Egypt. Or you want to go to Machu Picchu. Those are the two you always
Okay, so my friend Ed just returned from Machu Picchu. I have to download with him and have a lunch, but the pictures he posted were amazing. He did the Inca Trail, so there's a couple ways up to Machu Picchu, but he did one of the trails up. He had an amazing trip from Facebook. At least Facebook says he had an amazing trip. And then, so the Machu Picchu is one. Egypt has always been on my list, and I'm dying to go cycling in the Dolomites in Italy. It's where the Giro d'Italia is run. So it's a lot of hills. It's kind of like the same riding through the Pyrenees or doing all those crazy climbs in France. That I want to do in the next 2 years. I think I could do that. Take Trek Travel or something.
I have a stupid question. So when they do the Tour de France. So it's a 30-some day. Like you just can't say I want to ride the Tour de France course unless you had all that time.
There is something called the Étape de Tour, and it's a bunch of tour companies will do 7 days where they'll follow the tour. So you ride the same road the tour rode yesterday, so you can follow along and do some of the climbs.
Did you do that?
And stuff. No, I would prefer to do pieces of it. Like 2 years ago when we were in France, I did the Mont Ventoux climb, which is still in my head. It was one of the most perfect days I've had on a bicycle. I would do things like that. I would pick little pieces of it and do it that way. Because it was more fun hanging out at the chateau drinking rosé than doing legs of the Tour de France.
I saw something recently. I saw somebody they were visiting Mallorca, and you did a bike camp there, didn't you?
Loved Mallorca.
I was wondering about just as a vacation destination beyond.
It's a beautiful destination.
Is it?
Yeah, my friend Ed again.
Is it affordable?
Yes, very affordable. They rented a beautiful house. They went in July, and July gets hot there. Like, I know they don't run bike trips there past April or May because when the summer hits, you don't want to be out. Right. You want to be by a pool or by the ocean, which I would say yes.
Yeah. Hey, so what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
You might want to take that thank you to Garrett and John back.
He's turning red.
All right. What caught my eye? Headline: The Mystery of the Dog Suicide Bridge. Overton Bridge in Scotland is kind of like the Bermuda Triangle of bridges, specifically for dogs with a death wish. So, there's a bridge in Scotland, and it's called the Overton Bridge. It spans the Overton Burn, which I suppose is like a river of some sort. I don't know why. It's B-U-R-N. I guess that's their way of saying river. In the village of Milton, near Dumbarton, in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland. Boy, that's like a...
Say Scotland.
Just say Scott. Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to go with that from now on. Designed by the acclaimed landscape architect H.E. Milner with stone parapets 18 inches thick, it was completed in 1895 and sits on the approach road to Overton House, a baronial house that actually showed up in a movie, a couple movies, this big old mansion. The house is said to be haunted, obviously. In Scotland, everything old in Scottish is said to be haunted, right? But the bridge, there's supposedly much more to it than the garden variety haunting. So the bridge has an interesting history. A man committed suicide or tried to kill his son, then he committed suicide in 1994. But it's most notable because since the 1950s, around 50 dogs have died leaping off the 50-foot tall bridge.
Oh my gosh, is that a real picture of a dog jumping off?
Well, yeah, but that dog lived. During the same period, some 600 dogs have made the same jump and survived. Sometimes the dogs have made the jump, survived, come back up, and jumped again as soon as they could. All the dogs reported to have taken the jump are long-nosed breeds, German Shepherds, Scottish Terriers. The dogs all jump from the exact same spot, between the two ramparts at the right-hand side of the bridge at the very end, and it has to be a clear day. No one can explain why. So it has to be a perfectly clear day. It's the same spot, and the dog will just jump right off the bridge.
What if they see something?
The most common theory is that smell is luring the dogs to their demise. Squirrel, mice, and most pungently, mink. I didn't know about this. Mink are known to nest below the bridge, the scent of which is attractive to these particular dogs. This theory ticks a variety of boxes. Mink were introduced to the area in the 1950s when the jumps began, and the smell of mink would be the strongest on clear days. But that doesn't explain everything because other dogs have just jumped from that exact spot. So are animals even deliberately capable of ending their lives? Do you think an animal can commit suicide?
No. They want to eat.
I've actually done a couple studies on this. They think some animals may sometimes just end their lives. Namely, they mentioned the dolphin in here. What was the Flipper?
Yeah.
One day Flipper just flipped out.
Enough?
Yeah. Just no more show, no more fish. Flipper just... So a canine psychologist, I did not know there was such a thing. This you talk about graduation, and yeah. Named Dr. Sands has traveled to the bridge with a documentary crew in 2005 in order to conduct his own investigation, something the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Animals also did, cruelty to animals, sorry. There, standing at the exact point of the bridge where the dogs jump, he says, just me as a person, forget a dog, all your senses are on fire. It's a strange feeling. So he actually feels that part of the bridge is kind of weird. They eliminated the scent theory because mink do nest in other bridges with the same exact, no one's jumped there. They thought that the UK has a Trident submarine nuclear base not far away. They thought it was a high-frequency thing. They eliminated that because they brought in technicians. And they figured out that the sound was not bothering the dogs. And so they're left with this mystery of why do dogs jump off from that exact spot on the bridge on a clear day only?
I want to put a fence up.
Well, now locals have mixed feelings. They will not walk with the dog. If they're dog owners, they avoid the bridge. They don't do a lot of stuff like that. But I thought that was just kind of a Tim Bennett thing.
Yeah, I read something, and I didn't bring it in as a caught my eye, but I was wondering about it. And maybe I should look it up. But I was reading a story that said, do you know when dogs are always hunting to go to the bathroom? Yep. Do you know why?
Don't they want to go somewhere where a dog hasn't gone?
That's what I thought. Maybe they want to find the right spot. They said dogs will only poop in a north-south axis with the magnetic pull of the earth.
North-south?
Yeah. So they're trying to get them.
They're triangulating.
I don't know. Maybe somebody.
Oh, Garrett just made it.
What? Our whole system here is a grid. My dog faces all different directions.
You Google it.
No, I agree. There is a story about that, but I don't believe it's true.
There's a story about they said the dogs will only, if you watch the way the dogs finally poop, they'll only poop on a north-south axis. I don't know.
I did hear that, but I don't believe it's true. For my dog, the avenue only goes north-south, and he faces all different ways when he poops on that one street. It's not like he's lining up all the time in a certain way.
I love
a
Garrett.
Wet blanket, Garrett.
No, he's not. I still laugh at that Garrett line from a few weeks ago. We were talking about Michelle and Marcus Bachman, and you said, I wonder if they have kids. And then and then Garrett chimes in, he says, they have 5, or at least she does. great.
All right. Well, that was my, that's why I didn't bring it in as a caught my eye, because I figured
It was going to get shot down
would
by
debate it
everybody?
with me.
Okay.
So I brought this one in instead, which I think is, for us old salts or anyone else, this is the headline. British schools are replacing all the analog clocks with digital ones because students can't tell time.
Where did you find this? That's caught your eye, right?
This was caught my eye. So it says British schools are replacing analog clocks with digital ones because the kids can't read them. It's not a problem just in Britain, however. Plenty of American schools now are doing the same thing. So they found that this one teacher, a proctor, was giving an exam in Britain, and they said that they had an analog clock. That's the clock that's round with the hands on it. And they said that the students kept turning around and looking in the back at a digital clock that was off by 10 minutes because they said you have 2 hours to finish the exam, and they couldn't understand on the clock. They couldn't read 2 hours. So actually, I think it's Jimmy Kimmel just did something about this on the streets, and they've asked a bunch of kids what time it was. No one knew what time.
Looking at
Well, they had a clock. They said, "Can you tell me what time it is?" And only one kid got it right out of about 10.
That stuns me.
So they said nobody's teaching anybody how to tell time on an analog clock. They said that they're used to seeing digital representations on their phone, all on their computers. Everything they have is digital. So the youngsters aren't exposed to given anything other than digital time. But they said all the schools in most buildings have analog clocks. Yep. Nobody's got digital clocks, but they said they have no idea what time it is. They said to make things worse, kids don't wear watches anymore. We knew that people don't wear watches.
When did you get your first watch?
Oh, when I was little.
Do you remember?
Like
I was so excited. It was, and who made it?
Timex.
And Timex.
The drugstore.
Timex was right around. We had our corporate headquarters down the road.
So they're now starting to install these digital clocks in the exam halls. They said in Oklahoma City, only 1 in 10 children owned a watch, and only 1 in 5 could tell time. And this was in Oklahoma City, but Oklahoma's got its other problem. They said that
we did like Oklahoma City though on our road trip.
So they said because they can't tell time on a normal clock, they also think it's become very stressful for the students, because they don't understand how much time they have to finish something, to finish a task.
When you and I were taught how to tell time, that was part of the whole thing. Like if you understood the clock.
So this is you. So you're the principal of the school, John. You're coming to say this is a relevant life skill still.
Yeah, it is.
And they said reading an analog clock is a cognitive workout for your mind. It requires attribution of different values to the same 12 symbols, interpreted on 3 parallel planes: seconds, minutes, and hours. Only with practice does this awesome mental feat come to feel easy.
I like this guy.
It's a relevant life skill. And so my question is, what's going to be next? Are they going to get rid of the thermometer? Are they going to get rid of a ruler? Because if you look at a thermometer, right, you've got to look at a thermometer and read the numbers.
You have to understand what the degrees mean, and they relate to how you feel in terms of temperature. So this explains, the other day I was walking down the street, I was near Bryant Park, and this guy comes up to me, and he said, "Can you tell me the time?" And I said, "Sure." And I do this, and I said, and I hold it up. I held up my watch, and I showed it to him, and he just stares at it.
I had no idea.
And I said, "It's 10 after 2. Oh, okay. Now I think that had I held up my phone and just pushed the on button and it showed the 0210 whatever, that might have made more sense to him. How crazy is that? My God.
So, but and that's why if you're watching on our video broadcast, why I did things like Big Ben and some of the famous clocks. Are you now not going to? You're not going to make Big Ben a digital clock.
No, most certainly not. And I do think, I remember the whole concept of learning time, period, was a big deal.
Tying your shoe. And I know we don't teach cursive anymore. I told you that famous story when I sent a graduation card to my friend's kid and he opened it up.
Couldn't read it.
Going off to college, private school, good school, couldn't read the card. And I said to the mother, I said, he doesn't seem to be grasping the card. I made a little funny in there. She goes, he can't read it. I said, why? They can't read cursive. I
think some schools are starting to bring that back.
I know why my old boss homeschooled his kids. 1950s textbooks.
Well, that's anyway, the way history should be.
The way history
1950s history.
The old bar. What was the Andy Griffith theme?
Jim's on his salt box.
Business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the focus group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
The chair went lower, so after the...
So, this guy, I never heard of him. Henry John Kaiser. Do you know him?
Kaiser was industrialist, or was that manufacturing?
Everything.
Oh, everything.
Not too much he didn't do.
Not too much he didn't do. Okay.
Born May 9th, 1882, died August 24th in 1967. He was 85. An American industrialist, became known as the father of modern American shipbuilding, amongst other things. During the war, he was of German descent, but he was really big on fighting Germany, and developed this Kaiser shipyards out west, and which also led to Kaiser Aluminum and Kaiser Steel, and they built something called Liberty ships and Victory ships, which were done within 45 days, where ships took a lot longer to build. He went to Henry Ford's factories and learned about assembly line building, and then
about the manufacturing.
build these ships.
If you're watching the video, or if you're not, if you're listening, Tim put up a picture of Kaiser on the left. On the right, it looks like he's talking to Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt. Okay.
So that could, because they were so thankful of him being able to build these ships, he built hundreds of ships
for the war effort.
Right. So aside from that, though, he grew up here in New York, stayed in Utica. He was a cash boy at a department store, and moved out to Washington State in 1906. He started a paving company for heavy construction. He built the first roads in Cuba. He was one of the prime contractors in building the Hoover Dam and the Grand Coulee Dam.
Seriously?
Yeah. I mean, I was reading this. It's unbelievable.
He's never been a business birthday of ours before.
No.
Okay.
He was an advocate of course, I said, of fighting the Germans. He let's see, the other thing he did. He started a car company, Kaiser Automotive, which he worked with a guy named Joseph Frazier. They established an automobile company from the remnants of another company called Graham Page. So Kaiser Motors produced the Kaiser cars in 1955, then moved production to Argentina. So in the 60s, he sold the operation to Ford and Renault and bought the Willys Overland Jeep, so Jeep Company, which he then later sold to AMC. But it was called the Kaiser Jeep, and they took Kaiser off when AMC bought it.
You had I'm going to have John put that up again, the quote that he had. I forget which deck number that was. Here it is. So Tim found this quote that and I think this is so perfect, right? I make progress by having people around me who are smarter than I am and listening to them. And I assume that everyone is smarter about something than I am. There you go. Yeah. That is the key to success there. Assume that someone else knows more than you and learn and listen.
So from there, 1946, he started Kaiser Aluminum.
Kaiser Aluminum.
Did aluminum foil, da-da-da-da. He was also convinced in the 50s that TV was going to be a great thing for branding and products. So he partnered with Warner Brothers and ABC and sponsored a show called Maverick. But he really just did it to promote his household goods, which were foil, the cars, everything else, so all the brands he had.
Integrated content.
Then he ended up working, he took the idea of 77 Sunset Strip and did something called Hawaiian Eye because he wanted to start populating Hawaii. So he's built all kinds of suburbs and developments in Hawaii. And while he was in Hawaii, he derived the Hilton Hawaiian Village. He also bought most of the radio and television stations and started Kaiser Broadcasting. Died in 85, or he died at 85.
Wow! Now,
he's in all kinds of Hall of Fame, and Arnold Schwarzenegger put him in, inducted into the California Hall of Fame, and so forth. But I glossed over a lot of what he did. But there's somebody like this, which is a true American industrialist. I was thinking, how do I not know Henry John Kaiser? I skipped over all Kaiser Permanente, which he actually started the very first healthcare system.
That's where I thought of Kaiser Permanente.
So he opened up a hospital for his employees, but then he also started this insurance, and then allowed his employees and relatives to buy insurance so that they would have good health care.
That one little fact at the start when you said he started as a cash boy in Utica.
Right.
Now, what is a cash boy?
He worked at register.
He collected money at a store or something.
Right. And what I didn't say, he fell in love with a woman, and her father would not let them get married because he said this man could never provide for you. So
challenge.
So what he did is that's when he moved out west and started this construction company, and he decided he would do construction business with the government because they would pay.
And that's Hoover Dam.
And so they said he saved all his money and then kind of went to the girl a year later and said, not only can we get married, but I'm going to buy a house and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And so, God bless him. I didn't know much about him, but
Oh my God! I'm gathering the father gave permission at that point.
Of course.
I mean, how could you not prove yourself, right?
Of course, of course. So I laughed.
Nicely done. I like that.
So hey, everybody knows that Deep Discount is one of our partners here on the Focus Group, and this week they have Page to Screen, which is a sale that they have. It's so if there was a great book that was made into a movie, so of course John and I picked a couple that we thought we should share. If you would like to find your own or any of the other great things that Deep Discount has, it really is, I believe, one of the best places, if not the best place, to find anything for your listening and audio and viewing pleasure. Go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo. So what'd you pick this week, Mr.?
Okay, so by the way, our crew at Deep Discount lets us kind of choose the sale. So I chose Page to Screen because it's running for the whole month of May, because I knew that you and I both love Page to Screen. And the movie that I picked is from 1981. I'm not a horror movie fan, but I do love a good ghost story, like a good old-fashioned ghost story. And so, in fact, the movie I picked is called Ghost Story. And it stars Fred Astaire, John Houseman, Melvin Douglas, and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. It's these 4 old guys, and they have a society called the Chowder Society or something. And they tell ghost stories, but the movie opens with one of them, a relative or one of the members of the Chowder Society, having a gruesome death in Chicago. I think he falls out of a skyscraper or something. And it all goes back to the fact that they did something in their youth that they all covered up. Ooh. And the spirit of this past problem is now coming to seek payback and revenge. Well done. One of those psychological, like George C. Scott in The Changeling, with that rubber ball. That
Believe in ghosts?
You've asked me this before, and
I've seen them.
You've had experiences, and you talk about them. I've not. Although, well, yeah, no. I'm going to say I wish they were around, but I don't know if I believe in them.
You have to open your mind.
So I recommend Ghost Story.
So my recommendation, I may have talked about before, but I laughed when I saw this.
I love this.
I started poking through, and it's the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, and they have it available on Blu-ray. They also have a collector's edition, and they have an anniversary edition, and all of them are under $15. I think the most expensive one's a Blu-ray at $14.98. But starring Kathy Bates, Mary Stuart Masterson, Mary Louise Parker, Jessica Tandy, who I love, Cicely Tyson. Came out in 1991. Fannie Flagg, which I always thought was funny because I always viewed her as this kind of wacky comedian. And so she wrote the book. I didn't realize this, but, in the movie, and probably many people have seen it, there was somewhat of an ambiguous relationship, may have been lesbian relationship between 2 of the main characters, right? And so they said that was one of the big critiques of the movie versus the book.
The book was more...
They said, unlike the novel, the film does not make the lesbian romance between the 2 central characters explicit. Instead, it leaves the relationship between Iggy and Ruth ambiguous. The DVD, if you do get it, contains an audio commentary in which the director acknowledges the relationship and points out that the scene between Iggy and Ruth, where they're engaging in a food fight, was meant to symbolize lovemaking. At the time of the film's debut, many LGBT activist groups criticized it for glossing over the lesbian relationship.
Well, and
1991.
I was going to say, you go right back to that year, and that was not a year that you were going to be too big about a blockbuster. Yeah. So the new release this week, if you're going to visit Deep Discount, as Tim said earlier, go to the Focus Group, focusgroupradio.com, click on their logo, and start shopping. We like getting credit for that. The movie is 50 Shades Free, which is the 3rd in the installment of the 50 Shades of Grey. So I think it went 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades More, I think was the second one, and this is 50 Shades Freed. Now, I am not necessarily a fan of this stuff, but the 50 Shades of Grey began as a self-published book, right?
Yeah.
That a publisher eventually picked up. The thing is, like,
it's going
sold
crazy.
like hotcakes because...
Great soundtrack.
Did it really have a good sound? Look, Garrett's smiling. Did it really have a good soundtrack?
I like my sex black and white.
Did either of you guys see any of the 50 Shades movies?
Do you know it's a fan fiction of Twilight?
A fan fiction of Twilight.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Or Twilight's a fan. It's either one. They're like, one's a fan fiction.
There's a
of
connection.
The other. Yeah.
We're going to have to get your chair out here. Get chair out here, Garrett. You could be co-host.
No, I brought this one up with a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, that's a chick flick." And I said, "I don't know. I think it's like a date night movie or something, but it's definitely the appeal. I think skews a little more towards females." So the Again, the release this week is 50 Shades free. So we want to thank you for shopping at Deep Discount. And to recap, it's page-to-screen sale. I recommended a movie from 1981 called Ghost Story. 4 great actors, classic actors, and it's a true ghost story. Tim loves fried green tomatoes, man.
Tomatoes.
You can't have enough of the fried green tomatoes from 1991. And the release this week is 50 Shades free. What do you say, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
All right. Your mother calls Apple Computer with a problem, and they say, we're going to put you on hold. And 2 hours later, she's still on hold. Jeanne Bliss would have you say, would you do that to your mother? She's going to be coming up right next. She's a customer service expert, and I think you're going to love hearing about her book and enjoy her conversation with us. So stay with us. We're going to be right back.
It makes me feel younger than I am, actually. My name is Hendrik Muth. I'm the Senior Vice President for Product Marketing and Strategy at Volkswagen of America. With the new Jetta, we basically wanted to combine the DNA of the Jetta with a very modern, progressive form. It is very precise, very much about the details, like how the LED daytime running lights go into the grille of the vehicles. If you look at the fog lights on the bottom, it has a little bit air inlet, so the air gets through, and that really also improves the aerodynamics. The little details, you don't need to do it, but we want to do it because we're Volkswagen. The word is really fun to be in. What I really like coming in is really that the inside of the car looks at you. I have everything in my place, what I need. On the ambient light settings, I like the blue. My daughter would choose the hot pink. It's really like a young looking design. I go on the navigation screen. I can either choose whether I have it right here on the setup or I want to look only forward. I have it right in here and I can even make it as big as possible. We have a Beats sound system in this one, so also very modern. You even get the big boom and the bang if you want it. It's really your own world in your own Jetta, so you make it my Jetta. When we showed the car first time to our dealers, it is a really emotional moment. When you present that car and it was a spontaneous applause, you feel that relief. Everybody is proud to see this is our baby. The Jetta has come to life. I'm so proud of being part of this entire project. I love it.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. We're all business, except when we're not. And of course, we're business now because we have, which I'm not so sure she really likes this title, but I saw it on the book jacket, The Godmother of Customer Service.
Somebody called me the grandmother, and I said, I like godmother a lot better. So
Yeah, I'd go down a notch.
So for it to only get worse, then it said you're a pioneer. So I a pioneer in customer service. I thought, because John and I have been called that with doing LGBT.
No,
The way you just said it, they're circling the wagons. We're going to make it to Frisco.
You have a watch?
Yeah. Can you tell? Yeah, it did.
So joining us is, and she's obviously a good sport as we're teasing her, but her latest book, this is her 4th book. It's called Would You Do That to Your Mother? The Make Mom Proud Standard for How to Treat Your Customers. And John and I had talked earlier in the show, and we've been very limited in our business book authors lately because we found a lot of times they just seem to be kind of the same book repackaged, and yours really had something different. So before we get into it, I guess maybe you should tell us how did we get here to
that one?
To this one, yeah.
So I've been doing this work for 35 years. You know, I call it pushing the customer rock up the hill. And
Sisyphus.
Yes, I'm a human Sisyphus. I'm a girl Sisyphus, right? Okay. And the work is very, very important. But what's happening is it's getting more and more complicated. And I've written the complicated book for a chief customer officer and a chief executive officer. But in this kind of discipline, when it becomes important, now it's about mechanics versus humans. So I needed to bring everybody back to why we're in business in the first place.
Right.
Some human. You like that? Yep. Is that good? There's a human.
Yeah, it's because it's people.
Yeah, there's a human at the end of your decision, and you're doing stuff to them. And it's either your employee or customer. And mom's a good metaphor because most people love their mom, or if it's not your mom, someone you love. But then we operationalize it as well. But that was the starting point.
I actually think that the title plus another phrase you use, the mom lens, pretty much says it all. It really, if you think about this, and you love your mother, we all love our mothers, right? At least I do. And just asking the question, would you do that to your mother? Yep. Would you tell her, no, you can't return? Or whatever the customer service issue is, it resolves itself very quickly because the answer is no, you would not do that to your mother.
Well, but the other thing is interesting is even allowing your employees and thinking about it as a leadership team to ask that question, we're going to upset the apple cart. Are you willing to ask, would you turn down your mom's warranty claim in 3 days? Well, no, you wouldn't. But how are you going to let your employees make that decision?
Because the rule says...
The rule says X. Right. So you've got to challenge what are the rules? How do you let people overturn the rules? Do you hire the right people you can trust to overturn the rules? And on it goes. So the conditions have to be right, and you have to do the hard work to let people live this. So that's why I call it the conscience question. Right?
Yeah.
But then you have to operationalize it.
So at the end of the day, though, is it all start from the top? Because I wondered about this in reading. I think we all agree the concept, sharing, treat people well, trust, all the things that we were taught from Mom. But then I thought, okay, you work for some very major corporations, Microsoft, was it Allstate, Land's End, thousands and thousands of employees. Oh, you worked at Mazda?
I did. Zoom, zoom.
Oh, did you know Eric Johnson?
Gosh, what did he do there?
Well, he was in customer relations for a while. Also marketing. He came from Ford. So anyway, I worked with him at Subaru.
I reported to the president of the Americas there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. But we're back on a side note with Maz. We'll talk offline.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, and the auto's a good example. Yep. So does it come from... If it's not happening at the top, and that was probably part of your job, to try to figure out how to...
human duct tape to get them all together.
Because it has to go down, right? Otherwise, it's just never going to happen, or is that not true?
People need a mirror to image. They need to have good behavior to follow. And that's why the way the book is organized is Take the High Road chapter is leadership bravery, right? Are you going to choose to not charge $7 for bottles of water? Are you going to choose to get rid of fine print? And are you going to choose, to your point, to be the kind of company that lets your front line do what I call intersecting policy and the golden rule, right? So your mom's there.
Right.
And if you're on the front line, you want to be given the ability to understand how long she's been with you, what her value as a customer is, what her scenario is, get the data in front of you, be hired for the right reasons, and then make the call. And be trusted to make the call and not have your hand slapped to make the call. So yes, leadership. A lot of people say, oh, it's about service in the front line. No. You got to enable people to be that version of themselves at work.
So one question we still do love asking is who is buying the book then? Who should buy the book? Because when I hear you give your definition and we look at leadership, leadership could be an owner of a small company. It could be a Fortune 500. It could be the C-suite of a Fortune 500 company. So a lot of people could benefit by this book.
Well, and even especially the front line as well, because here's the cool deal about that is we own who we are and how we respond. So the way I write it in the book is kind of every level of the organization can benefit. If you're on the front line, it can make you pause and modulate your response, right?
Excellent word.
Am I going to be nice, or am I going to be kind of snarky or whatever? Am I going to have a good day, or am I going to leave a memory? You have the power to deliver memories, right? So that's the front line. The middle, that creates all the spaghetti bowl complications in our lives as customers. If they stop as they're rebuilding a process and say, okay, what would we want our mother to go through? One of the questions in the book is, would you want your mom to go through your phone tree? Right?
Well, and that's press one for this.
Well, and that was one of my key questions for you is what. So usually any of us that want to, all of a sudden you've got to call a company. It's not because, oh, hey, thank you, we love your product. It's because I'm going to battle. Right? I feel like I'm going to battle.
Your dukes up a little bit, right?
And so my frustration has always been, and you do address it in the book in a couple places, and I don't know how you fix it, there's either the offshore call center that you get, or if you're lucky, Otherwise, you just get in a loop.
Yep.
And I just had this happen with healthcare, trying to get somebody on the phone to explain a benefit to me for healthcare.
That's right.
And I couldn't get anybody. And when you do get somebody, I'm constantly answering the same questions each time I get handed off.
Right.
You already have my number. You must have my screen in front of you with everything on there. Why do you keep asking me questions? And I thought, is this part of technology and society that we live in? Almost it reminds me of Amazon a little bit, what Amazon's done to brick and mortar and what they've done to the mall and so forth, of this no human interaction, right? Is that, so how does that fit into this?
No, it totally fits in. And here's what's interesting about it is that in one of the chapters, I think it's the second chapter, I call it Don't Make Me Feed You Soap.
Yeah. I was just looking at that one here.
It's good, right?
I always got the lemon joy.
Yeah, I got the bar, the white bar.
Ivory.
There's 7 kids in my family, so we have somebody. My mom was always wielding
Cake soap.
That.
You
Yeah,
gotta get the
yummy,
cake.
yummy. Anyway, in there are a lot of those things you're talking about. But what's interesting is you've got to build what I think of as a respect delivery machine. You may choose tweet. You may choose chat. You may choose to call. And a lot of people, the pendulum's swinging way far that technology is the answer. But the companies that get it are blending technology and humanity.
The human touch.
The human touch. But here's what's interesting, too, is it's not, yes, you may want to tweet, but the tone of that tweet's got to be about a human. And it can't be somebody saying, thanks for the tweet, we'll get back to you. Meh.
Which is...
Hey, what does that do? That's like nothing. The other thing that's really interesting about this is, especially in a world where people are trying to do self-service, when they opt out of self-service, and I talk to a lot of call center companies who are worried about their future, but their future is more important than ever. When they opt out of self-service, to your point, they need someone who's empowered, somebody who has all the screens of your knowledge, has the corporate memory, and is trusted to take action. Because if you're requiring them to go back twice, they're going to hit the road and find somebody else. I mean, there's lots of research that says by 2020, there is going to be no tolerance for you not knowing who I am in your corporate memory bank.
Wow. All right, Jeanne Bliss is our guest. Would You Do That to Your Mother is the book. So who is doing it well and who's doing it super bad? Can you actually look at that? Let's not even a company, perhaps an industry.
Sure.
So I look at airline.
Yeah, I was going to say airline. I'm having a hard time. Well, and
I think airline is an example of a confrontational from the get-go.
I think put up your dukes.
I think
kind of
the minute the
experience.
passenger rolls into the airport, they are looking to spar because they know they have to pay this. It's all set up. All the booby traps are set up
Yep,
to aggravate
those
me on the way to the
gotcha
plane.
moments, I call
So
them,
do you
yeah.
agree? Is that an industry that could use?
It's a tough industry, and there's a couple really good airlines in the book that are doing things differently. But it takes, like we talked about, a conscious decision to say we're not going to play that game. So, for example, Southwest has transparency. It's like no hidden rules or fees. Colleen Barrett, who's the president emeritus of Southwest, says they have to constantly defend this, at a board level sometimes. We're not going to start adding on these fees.
The notion of transparency.
And of not adding
on
paying
fees.
for your pillow,
Okay.
right?
So I recently, well, I don't fly too often anymore, but I went out to California last year and I flew on Virgin America, which is now owned by Alaska.
And Alaska's in the book.
So I'm in this plane and I noticed that the stewardess is delivering food to people. And I'm thinking, when am I getting mine? And she must have seen my expression because she bends down. She goes, "Can I help you, sir?" And I said, "Well, everybody else is getting something." "Oh, no, you order from the screen."
Yeah.
And she walked me through the process, tap, tap, tap. She goes, "You put your order in?" She goes, I said, "Should I do it now?" "Oh, no, you can do it by yourself, and then I'll come bring it to you." It was hilarious. I put the order in, I got a little sandwich, and I was thrilled. And I watched her do it to anybody who even looked quizzical about it. And I thought, you talk about customer service.
That's right.
Isn't it part of the runway show? You weren't paying attention.
Oh, on
No.
Virgin? Oh, on the
Oh, you mean when they do the whole
commercial.
little... No, this... Maybe I didn't pay attention, but...
Well, and what's interesting, you mentioned, Alaska and Virgin are merging.
Were those two cultures a good fit?
I think that, Alaska's been considered by many as one of the top airlines, and they're really good from a human
I don't like the
standpoint.
logo with that Eskimo on there.
Well,
Like that?
they're Pacific Northwest. You got to honor them.
yeah.
So,
I don't mind
you
the
can
blue marble. I know. I used to live in
snort when I
Portland.
laugh. Sorry. So, but regardless of if you like that Eskimo, you'll have to write them a letter. They're
You'll have to write him a letter. Yes, dear sirs.
They're Eskimos. But here's the cool thing in this book under might be Take the High Road. I can't remember which chapter it is. They've built something they call a We Trust You toolkit, which gets right to this. So in a lot of airlines, you know, we've put the people in the role of being a policy cop, right? Or protecting whatever their little role is. This We Trust You toolkit is for baggage handlers, people on the phone, the flight attendant, the people at the gate, the pilots, anyone. If they see you have a quizzical look or whatever, they have a whole bevy of things they can do. Free tickets, miles, a bottle of champagne if it's your birthday.
Wow.
And
all at their discretion.
Yes.
What airlines is?
The ones with the Eskimo.
Get on there.
You're going to be flying that now.
You're going to want to ride in that blue marble. And here's the deal. The CEO says, connect with the human, act. Don't ask for permission.
Fascinating.
That's who we are. That's that culture. You got to give people permission to be, this was the first chapter, be the person I was raised to be.
You know, it's funny. It reminded me when you, and I saw that in the book.
Yeah.
It reminded me when I did work at Subaru, and I was in the Chicago. I was in the Chicago region in the Midwest.
Chicago.
Well, there we go. So we got another thing coming. But the regional vice president there had pulled all the reps in because there's a bunch of us on the road going to dealers and all across the Midwest. And he said, if you ever see a Subaru pulled over on the side of the road and it looks like it broke down, pull over and help them out.
That's right.
And this was before cell phones and a lot of other things. And we said, well, what do you mean? They said, even if you're sitting there and waiting for them while they get a tow truck, identify them, show them your business card. A lot of the service and parts people obviously could probably fix the car on the side of the road or something. But it happened to me once, and the woman, I remember, she had a flat tire, and she was like, well, you know, what's going on here? And I said, you know, but I was in my suit, and I was in a Subaru, and I said, you know, I just want to make sure. She said, oh, somebody's coming. And I said, if you ever have any questions, and I gave her my card. And we got in trouble for that back at the home office because they said, you're exposing yourself too much for either lawsuit or what if something...
The lawyers got involved.
What if something becomes expensive or all of a sudden, you know, how are we going to pay for something? But to this day, I still think about it if I see a car pulled over because I thought, gosh, that's such a horrible time for somebody with any auto, right? And if somebody did pull over from the manufacturer and said, hey, is there any way, can I call the dealer for you?
Can I rolled away? Yeah.
And I talk about it, I tell 100 people, right? So
that's right. Well, and that's what's woven into this whole thing. I call it congruence of heart, doing what you know is right, and habit, being allowed to do it.
Yes.
You know, your story about Subaru is pretty cool. Cleveland Clinic, which is a big hospital system, very revered now. But a little over 10 years ago, Toby Cosgrove, the CEO then, said, people like our quality of care, but they don't like us very much. And so they created...
That's an interesting dilemma.
In the book, and they created their version of what you just talked about with Subaru, which is the beginning of their metamorphosis. Sometimes you have to start with a rule that's so small, but let people do it. They called it the no passing rule. If you're delivering flowers or a caregiver or a therapist or whatever, if you see that red light on in a room, you go in.
Really?
A red light is never allowed to be on.
So, you know, you mentioned this in the notes and also in the book that, and healthcare is an interesting side trip down this road of what would you do that to your mother? You had the example of a patient is on a gurney and they're being transported to an MRI. Mm-hmm. So one individual takes them to the exterior of the MRI room, leaves them there, walks away. A different person comes out and wheels them in, then walks out. The last person is the one who's administering the actual MRI, and that's probably where the greatest interactivity is going to happen. But you've had 3 opportunities to bond or make a patient feel like this is all super cool, but it doesn't happen because that's the way the system is set up.
That's right, and that's the intro to the Cleveland Clinic story, which is so great because what happens in every business, no matter the vertical, people are paid to do a role, and they execute that role probably correctly. But the person, your mom, can still end up hanging out in that hallway by herself.
Feeling alone or scared. Or
So the second thing Cleveland Clinic did, because just a rule alone isn't going to transform a culture, but sometimes people, especially in the beginning of a transformation, need something so explicit that it says, do this and we'll be on our way. They elevated everybody's role and therefore their accountability and their ability to behave to caregiver. Before then, the only people that were given that title were doctors.
Doctors, okay.
So you're a therapist or an MRI person, so you have permission to hang out with mom. So they took care of first a rule, a mechanical tactical rule, then people's human behavior. Then they handled the organizational divide, which is you're laying in that bed and they have what's called in healthcare burden of care. Everybody from every discipline comes in separately. You know, you have to carry your films or remember your prescriptions. So now they do what they call...
Great term, burden of care.
Right. They have what they call caring for the 360. So they round, when they visit the hospital beds, the whole team rounds together. Every doctor that takes care of you, every nurse, every therapist,
point of contact you've had for...
They come together.
Okay.
So now you're not being poked on the hour by 5 people.
And being asked the same question 10 different ways.
Yes. So this is what got them. They're the #2 hospital in from U.S. News and World Report, and they're loved. Wow. You have to do deliberate things. It's not etch care on a crystal ball and pass it out to everybody, right? Or send a memo.
So maybe this is a follow-up book for you.
Oh no! Now you're
some kind of an. So you have a new book idea.
You can write it.
By the way, this is Tim. Tim's back on set today. He had a back surgery, a discectomy.
Oh, you've just been through all the shenanigans.
And for several weeks, he was dealing with a lot of the pain in the back thing.
Are you okay?
Oh, he's more than okay. He's back.
But I will say, I live in Philadelphia area now, and I went to the Bryn Mawr Hospital, which. I have nothing but great things to say. It was fantastic. The experience was wonderful. Part of the Rothman orthopedic group as well. So that does make a huge difference with how you're treated when you're...
So what's your follow-up book?
So my follow-up question was, as I'm listening to all this about the great companies, I'm wondering, could you reverse engineer this? In other words, could the consumer or the person, us, that's dealing with the company use this approach?
Tell me more.
Well... So if when we talked about, okay, I'm going to make a call and I'm going to do battle, so I'm already got my guard up, could you say from the person now calling, so now I'm calling company ABC, if I did, would I treat my mother like that on the phone? Would that be a better approach? I'm wondering if that's and I don't know if I'm probably clumsy saying it, but
I get what you're saying, I think. Well, what we know is if you treat the person who answers your call with respect, she's going to be a lot more happy to take care of you. The poor, and here's what's interesting is those people are not loving it when they have to turn down your warranty claim.
Yeah,
that they have to pass you on. That's been imposed on you.
They want to solve a problem.
They don't want to do that stuff to you.
They want to be a hero.
And they want to be a good human. It's that whole congruence. When you force somebody to act like they're not used to acting or that's not in their normal value set, that's why companies have so much, turnover and everything. That's why these great companies hardly lose people, because there's a spirit. There's a prosperity of the human spirit that gets bred as you let people take these behaviors. But yeah, that's a cool book.
Well, being a good customer, right?
Yeah.
So we're all so trained, though, to have a bad experience. When
we go in with our dukes up.
Yeah, you're ready for battle.
But that's almost instinctive because we've had the experience happen where you didn't get what you wanted.
You've been conditioned. Yeah.
So you have your own company, right? You do consulting. So is it all on customer service?
It's on customer experience.
Customer
experience, the whole end-to-end journey. I work with executive teams, and a lot of companies are naming a role called a chief customer officer, which is kind of the role I had in all of those big corporations. I reported to the executive team, and I called myself the human duct tape of the organization. Because nobody takes a comprehensive view of the customer's life, right? So that's really, you've got to take accountability.
Oh, I can't forget this one. Go ahead.
And I know you won't tell us the name of a company, but you obviously must.
If you want.
No, but I mean, you must have gone into some where it was you're just frustrated and it's just not. I mean, are there some that just don't? It's just not going to work?
Yeah, I'll take a guess at that one.
Can you?
Go.
Right here, the U.S. Postal System.
Well,
that might have been, but right here it says, you're at Kaiser, Johnson & Johnson, and I see the U.S. Postal System. I thought, is this the one company that Jeanne had to say, Mom is just going to say, Mom's going to put the baby in a basket and float it down the river and hope it ends up being Pharaoh's child.
Well, what's interesting is every company is made up of all kinds of people, right? It's a market basket of human beings and things they're able to do, and businesses also that are grown by people getting what they need because they elevate to certain roles. That's a government kind of a business, and
you used the wrong tape. You can't use that tape.
There's a lot of really good people.
Okay, do you have other tape? We don't have tape.
You guys
Next.
get me in trouble.
I'll never forget the day I went in to buy they had a commemorative issue.
Yeah, they're kind of mad into some of those.
Oh, they're angry in there. You got to go
Why?
in.
Because they're getting a pension for life and free health care? Why are they angry?
You got to go
I
in.
don't understand.
That's the one business I go in with an actual game plan.
Yeah.
Even to buy a stamp.
Biting your tongue, Jeanne.
She's being very diplomatic,
I'm
isn't
trying hard because, you know.
Husband's a letter carrier.
I know, my husband's a geek.
So I one time went into the post office expressly to buy a sheet of commemorative stamps. They did this Star Trek. Some designer did a set of stamps, and I go in, and I finally get to the window, and I said, and the thing opened, the thing slides up. Yeah, and I said, I would like to get a sheet of the Star Trek stamps.
Did she say Nanu?
You a fan? And I just stood there, and I'm like, yeah. She goes, got a lot of fans buying them, a lot of fans. But you could use those to mail things for real. And I was like,
oh, you mean because people are buying them and keeping them?
Yeah.
Is that what you were doing?
Why do they care?
Yeah.
There you
Right,
go.
yeah.
Why would you think beyond? Give me the damn sheet of stamps.
Here's the Star Trek stamps, and do you want the flag? Do you want Old Glory stamps?
Now, if the postal worker did this, live long and prosper,
Yeah, right.
I would have walked out of there
figure
having
out
a
how to
great
do
experience.
that.
It's hard.
I can't.
I did it since a childhood. Could you do it, Tim?
I can do it, but I don't like the show.
I could do it, but I
creep
don't
you
like
out.
the
I can turn
show.
my arms inside out.
So had she done that, I would have walked out and I would have thought, man, that was an hilarious interaction with another human being.
Well, what's interesting is that they actually know and believe very much that postal, especially the carrier, is a part of all of our lives.
They are.
That's an important. It's a huge company.
And I do think
carriers are great. I've had great experience with the carriers.
And you did both break down the issue, there's the front end, window side. Then there's the letter carrier who knows you, who's at your building every day, who's at your mailbox, and that's almost a different.
And there's different people running those different parts of the operation, and I think we don't know what's driving that woman to. Did you buy it? How did you? Buy it?
Are you a fan?
And why is there a window?
Oh, with the plexiglass.
There's no window in my local one, but
yours is New York City.
New York City. This was the post office by the planetarium, the Natural History Museum. Before I forget, I want to let our listeners know that the book is delightful.
To drink with you guys.
Yeah, that would have been last week. We had the Cinco de Mayo party. There are questions. It's a graphic.
The last chapter, yeah.
There's a whole thing. There's the mom meter.
Make mom proud.
And on one end of it, it's oh dear. And she's like this, and then there's Make Mom Proud, and she's big smile on her face. Highly recommend the book. Jeanne, I want to thank you for joining us today. Jeanne Bliss is the author of Would You Do That to Your Mother? It's available where all fine books are sold. But you go to Amazon first.
This came out yesterday, right?
Yes.
May 8th.
Yes, it's been a 3-year odyssey of writing this book. So
this is a Mother's Day book.
So there's a hashtag.
Hashtag Make Mom Proud.
Okay, and then how else can people find you and find your other books?
Customerbliss.com. And then we also have this super, super cool thing that we're inviting all of our colleagues to do. I don't have it on here, but
I have it.
there's a website called make-mom-proud.com. We'll give you that. And people can go up there and post a picture of their mother, how she inspires them, and what makes them proud, how they take it to business with them.
Yeah, it's make-mom-proud.com.
By the way,
post a picture of your mom.
My mom used to wear these glasses.
Yeah, aren't they good?
The cat eyes.
I'm going to try to get Donald Trump to post a picture of his mom and see if maybe he's following mom's golden rules. Do you think?
Go for it.
I don't know who you voted for.
I plead the fifth.
All right, Jeanne Bliss.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Been our guest.
I want to hang out some more.
Yeah, we could do this all day. Trust me, I love it. Would you do that to your mother? I would not. And Jeanne has some great advice in here. It's a book for everybody, especially people that are in business and customer-facing businesses at that. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to wrap up the show with a shop talk. Is it about religion?
It's about how nobody's in religion anymore.
Oh, there you go. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Been in business a week. I got more money than I know what to do with.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
Herrera Rocher. He is doing well.
Norbert Beatty.
Okay. Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with John Nash. We've got a little bit of shop talk. Thanks for hanging with us here on a Wednesday live. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube.
Thanks to Jeanne. Fun guest.
Jeanne. We could have had her. We could have kept going.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I often think maybe we could skip shop talk at the end and just keep the guests.
All right, shop talk's all about religion.
Bye, everybody. No,
talk as fast as I can. It's all about religion. 23% down.
So John found these two articles, and I thought they were interesting. And maybe it's something more to think about than just kind of the throwaway line. But there was two articles. One of them said the number of Americans with no religious affiliation is rising.
The nuns.
And then
N-O-N.
N-O-N-E, not the nuns with a U. And then the other headline was increases in internet use linked to loss of religious affiliation study finds. And essentially what they found is that as we've, I guess in the last 5 years or 10 years that they've been doing these studies, that they found more and more people are affiliated or affiliate themselves with religion.
By the way, Tim and John, thank you for blowing it up. Tim finds, to illustrate our shop talk, I love the quote, religion is like a penis. It's fine to have one. It's fine to be proud of it. But please don't whip it out in public and start waving it around. And please don't try to shove it down my children's throats.
Jehovah's Witnesses. So,
ding dong. Have you been saved? Right. Nope, but I don't want to be.
I don't want to be.
The two articles of the two of them, one was from Scientific American, and it was just looking at the rise of people saying they're not religiously affiliated. And it's a little bit dry, but the statistics are definitely moving in the direction that organized religion, specifically when you look at the evangelical side of things, that actually atheists almost outnumber evangelicals. And from a political point of view, that's very important, although atheism is not a political movement and they don't have the same voice.
But they say not to be overlooked because there's more atheists. I think they gave the number about 64 million, but it overshadows the Jewish population, the Muslim population, the Hindu, all these other religions. And so they said it's a voting bloc that you should not be overlooking.
And a thing that I found fascinating about how they corralled this data was they looked at the LGBT community, and because that's a community that may not self-identify even in today's day and age, and they used the same statistical methodology to capture that number that they did for people, because they think that maybe people don't want to confess to the fact that they don't have a religion.
Or that people are more spiritual rather than being a particular. Now, I was baptized Protestant, Methodist. You were Catholic. And I don't have anything against it, but I would guess I would say I don't go to church.
Neither do I.
If I go to church, it's usually whether, God forbid, it's a funeral or there's a wedding or something, and you hear the sermon or you hear the homily or the
To be honest,
lesson.
I also think that when you and I were growing up, I was an altar boy, rang the bell, did the whole thing. And our parish priest, the only thing I ever kept hearing from him my entire time when I was going to church was, you could spend your whole life trying to eradicate poverty and you're not going to succeed, but we need to do that work. There was nothing about divorce. There was nothing about gays or lesbians. It was all about caring for your fellow man.
Being kind to
others. And we may never solve the problem of intolerance or world hunger, let alone everything else. All I hear are the far right voices crying about cake baking. Sorry,
unwed mothers,
or welfare people. It's so I see some forms of religion as a very cruel set of rules and circumstances versus what you and I grew up with, which was treat your neighbor like you want to be treated yourself. Right?
We've always said where religion starts, logic ends. But my one thought though, and I have my friends, and this is not a knock on any of my friends, but I do have a number of friends that are, I would say, more religious than probably expected at their age or for whatever. And they're in two categories. One is the very guilty Catholic. And the other one, and it's guilty because
that category, yeah.
Right? And then the other one is someone who's had maybe a very difficult time in life or tragedy. It could be they were alcoholic or they were addicted or they had cancer or something, and religion helped them get through it. And so I don't fault anyone for that. If that helps you help with your addiction or your health issues.
Power, gives you the ability to get up.
And I used to be critical of that. I'm not anymore because I think everyone has their own journey, and so I understand that. But I was wondering about whether, and all the people I know, and I'm wondering if you're in the same category, are your friends or your contemporaries, are there people that are religious or raising their kids religious or?
You know, you and I talked about this on the phone the other day, about our nieces in particular. Yeah. So my sister and her husband introduced their girls to the church, let them decide what they wanted to do. I think both girls were confirmed or baptized. I'm not sure they follow organized religion, but at least they made that available. I don't know too many people who actually are of the church going. It's Sunday, we're going to go to Mass, whatever faith it is. Now that's
you're going to synagogue, you're going to church, you're going whatever.
That's for a lot of Catholics that I know in my life. I will flip that around and say many of my friends who follow the Jewish faith are in fact on some levels practicing the religion, and a lot of it revolves around family things, the big holidays. It might be Passover with the Seder.
Similar to us with Christmas,
yeah, but it's woven into the fabric of their family interactions and their lives in a very interesting way. So this other article that, not to jump off that too quickly, but this other article about how the internet affects our religious affiliation. I wonder if you circled the same thing I did, because I was really fascinated by this one. Today, perhaps, is in part because many of us spend so much time online, we're more likely to understand our religious participation as free agents who can tinker with a plurality of religious ideas, even different conflicting religions, before we decide how we want to live. So the thought process is you're hopping around and you're information gathering, and you decide, I like that piece of that religion, I like that piece. It's not a buffet, by the way. If you talk to any of the organized faiths, here's the rule book.
I like some of what the Quakers think. I like some of what the Buddhists think.
I like that. Yeah, exactly.
My takeaway was technology changes us. But
my takeaway was
I don't know. I because we are so geared. I think they said 71% of the country still defines themselves as Christian, and we still celebrate Christmas. But Christmas maybe not even feels like a religious holiday anymore in many regards, even though we know it is. And
my bank account will tell you that it feels nothing like a religious holiday.
And there's Christmas breaks, right? The whole country's calendar revolves around Christian holidays to the most part. We have
which, as you know,
Good Friday off.
It used to be pagan holidays, but the church decided to co-opt them to make the pagans come into the fold. So it's a whole bunch of, I don't know.
If you had children, would you raise them religiously?
If I did, no, probably not. Honestly. And I'll tell you this, it had never crossed my mind to not be someone who practiced a particular faith or to say I'm this until I came out. And that's when all the doors close. It's like, oh, okay, I'm still a human being. I'm still the person I was 1 microsecond ago, but now suddenly, now suddenly I'm not the same human being that is from divine. The hypocrisy, and I don't mean to be on a soapbox. I should be the Andy Griffith theme should play, but the hypocrisy is so enormous that you're like, wow. 1 minute I'm a good human being, and the next I'm like sort of a second-class human being, even though we're all created in the image of,
That was a lot of my frustration with a lot of my very, very, very devout Catholic friends. I said that there's somebody getting up there every Sunday telling you you're another, telling you you're not worthy, telling you you're not allowed to be married, telling you you're a sinner, you're this and that. Why do you want to go there?
I love your expression. I got to freeze frame that one in the video. Why do you want to go there?
You know what I mean? Do you want to sit there and hear that?
No.
Somebody beating you up all Sunday morning, telling you you're not worthy.
And again, this was not my memory of growing up. I remember the sermons I used to hear were all about helping a neighbor, helping a friend, and it was all about help, feed the poor.
Feed the poor. Put money in the envelope.
Well, and that too, because we needed new stained glass windows. So even as a child, I was like, wait a minute. We're going to put new windows in that cost $10,000 a piece, but we can't do a soup can drive for the parish down the block. I mean, even as a kid, you knew it, right? Anyway. All right. Great show today. We want to thank
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day indeed.
To all our moms out there.
You're going to maybe see your mom.
That's my plan.
Go.
What's going on this week?
Regardless of that potato salad's going to taste great. My mom's coming in Bob's mom's coming in, my other mom, Jean. All right, we want to thank Jeanne Bliss for joining us today. Her book was Would You Do That to Your Mother? Appropriate for Mother's Day, but it's a customer service Bible that is really fantastic. Thank you, Garrett and John. You guys always keep us on the dime. Thank you, Tim. It's fantastic to have you back in studio, and you're back.
I'm back, Eddie.
Big thanks to Deep Discount. It's the page to screen sale. We went over 2 movies that we both liked, Ghost Story and Fried Green Tomatoes, and the new release is 50 Shades Freed. I'll say that the male lead is very sexy.
Oh, really?
It might be worth seeing it just for that. And a big thanks to VW of America. A lot of new models coming out, including the 2019 Jetta, which we had an interstitial for earlier. You could still check out the Tiguan, the Atlas. Are they still selling Beetle?
This year.
Oh, really? It's really going away, huh?
Yeah, but they're supposed to be coming out with the electric VW bus, which may be, as soon as I can get an electric car go 300 miles, I'm getting one.
As soon as it hits 300 mile on a charge. So VW.com to find out more about all the models they have. Don't text and drive, arrive alive. Was that good, Tim? Good. That's very good. All right, we're going to see you next week, folks. So thanks so much and have a safe one.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.